Gary Allen, CEO, Rjrgleaner Communications Group. Another hit by way of losing an icon. We're talking about Oliver Clarke. What does this represent to you personally and to the group?
Well, as the CEO of the group, I am CEO of a group that has lost, 4 chairmen in the last 3 years. So that's a big burden to be carrying with the staff who feel these things. The managers, the colleague directors, the staff, they do feel when you have these kind of momentous occasions happening in the group. And although we all knew that Oliver was unwell, we were always hopeful that he would be around with us longer and longer. And when this happens, even though someone is not well, it hits you hard. And so there's a lot of sadness at the moment. And we are really just trying to make sure that we remember him with a lot of the things that he would say that would bring smiles to your face. And so every now and then you think of it as a sad moment, but you also have to smile at something that is just so Oliver-like.
Including get on with it?
Oh, absolutely. Oliver was always that kind of person who will tell you, this has happened, that has happened, it's bad, but we're going to fix it, so let's go. Get on with it is what he always tells us about the things that we need to do, and show must go on. So he's always going to be insisting on that. So we have to remember that that's his way, and we can't delay too long in this phase that we are being sorrowful and mournful, because he prepared himself for this and prepared us for this. So we have to get on with it.
I recall sharing with you some of his views when he was chairman of the board, and then he demitted office, knowing fully well that he wasn't able to carry on, and he wasn't making much of a muchness about his own illness.
Yeah. One of the things that I found with that is it's not so much that he wasn't able to carry on, because he continued as a director, and he was as sharp as a director and as probing as a director as he needed to be. But he has this sense of the organization being bigger than any individual. And so once he was clear about the level of illness that he had, he put in place a clear succession strategy, and he executed it, made sure everything was done and done properly, and then stepped on the sidelines to contribute from the sidelines, so that there would be continuity, because the organization is bigger than the individual.
He certainly was one of those who was a part of the merger that saw for the first time something like this happening in Jamaica. History will hold him in that regard. How was it? What was he like at that stage? Give us something that perhaps would be memorable for you as it relates to that event.
I keep remembering different things at different times, because this is the amalgamation of 2 significant organizations that were strong competitors for decades. And here we were talking about coming together. So those discussions took well over 2 years before we got to the point where there was an agreement. And it was always very interesting to watch 2 friends dueling at the table in Oliver and Lester Spalding, as they were at the time. And Christopher Barnes and myself, the respective managing directors, being there to try and see if we could gather as much from them, because we were sitting at their feet, so to speak. I remember there were some times when we had robust disagreement and testy things and so on. And I just remembered today, because I was looking for something and I saw the box where after one meeting, the next day when we met, Oliver came and he threw this box across the table. It was a box of tablets called Calms. And I have it to this day, but as far as he was concerned, just be calm. Here, if you're getting a little hot under the collar, here are some pills for you later on. So, you remember these things. You remember him saying, look, if we do these things, it's not for me and Lester, it's going to be you 2 young Turks. So
yes.
We don't want it to be bull in a China shop and to mash up my stuff.
Yes.
What are you going to do to make sure?
Yes.
So he keeps those things going
yes.
in the background, even though he pushes for the strong
Yes.
business decision.
Tell me, how will you regard him and how should history remember him? Certainly as a businessman and an icon. Where would you place him in the scheme of things?
You know, when you look at the breadth of Oliver's work, it's going to be very hard to separate Oliver and Lester Spalding in terms of which of those two has had the greatest impact on the media landscape in Jamaica and the region. Um, Oliver was head of MAJ. Lester was head of MAJ. Oliver was head of Kana. Lester was a director of Kana, but Lester was also president of the Caribbean Broadcasting Union. Oliver was head of the Caribbean Publishers and Broadcasters Association. So too was Lester. They are widely and highly regarded in the rest of the region. Their names are the names that you speak about when you talk about the stalwarts in media in the Caribbean. It's going to be hard to determine which of the two, but I think that they were quite comfortable, both of them sitting at the top of the pile. So I don't think I need to go any further to try to separate and make a distinction. I think when you take Oliver in his wider role as president of the Press Association of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, I'm sorry, when you look at him as head of the Services Commission, the Police Services Commission, when you look at the work that he has done in terms of the Committee on Parliamentarian Salaries, when you look at all of those kinds of broader activities that he got involved in, with Capri, how he led Jamaica National and the broadening of Jamaica National's business and so on, he is going to rival most anyone in Jamaica as a businessman in terms of the pinnacle of where he has reached.
How will you remember Oliver Clarke, Oliver Frederick Clarke, OFC, as you have all alluded to him? What will be your greatest memory personally, and how will you live and ensure that the organization carry on his legacy?
Well, so let me take the last part of that question first, Michael. Oliver's death comes at a very difficult time in our organization's life. We have had to make some difficult decisions because of the impact of COVID-19 on our business, like it has been impacting businesses across the world. The one thing I woke up to this morning is that for the sake of the work of Oliver Frederick Clarke and J.A. Lester Spalding, this difficult time must be a time that we get through successfully, pilot the Rjrgleaner ship through this space, that we get back to the point where we have all our staff engaged, putting out the best product, because they have fought too hard and too long to take us to a point where we are going to allow the virus to turn us back. So it gives me a strong commitment that their legacy is in our hands to ensure that we rebuild from this. In terms of my own personal recollection of Oliver, again, you are challenged at this point to think back to a lot of things. I would have seen Oliver first when I was a mere correspondent for the Gleaner back in the 1980s. My first stint with the Gleaner, which was a one-year stint. And then it was just the man who was in charge that was on the fifth floor. Hello and good morning, but that was it. And then we have come to this point where we have developed such a strong relationship in terms of him wanting to understand what's happening in your family. He meets your children. He wants to know what they are doing. He inquires about how things are with them, not because it's on an agenda, but because he genuinely cares and wants to know. He has met your wife and he calls her up to find out how are things going. He genuinely has an interest in what is happening with you personally. So there's a business side to the man, there's a hard-nosed business side, there's a strident press freedom advocate, and then there is this giant of a personable man that you will never forget.
I suspect in the long run, we'll all be better off for having him. I have also my personal memories of him. I too did a stint at the Rjrgleaner right out of Calabar High School, and that's what turned me into, I suspect, the journalist that I've become. But our roads meet too often this way, and I can only suggest that from our office to yours as the leadership, that this is a moment that will be very testing for all of you, and we wish you all the best as we again mourn the loss of another one of our icons.
Thank you very much, Michael.